I'm AC Brown, and you're listening to Is My Aura On Straight, a podcast designed to help you start living from your core instead of your conditioning. Each week, we'll discuss topics ranging from human design, astrology, metaphysics, spiritual self-development, and everything in between. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Is My Aura On Straight. I am your host, AC Brown, and I'm your spiritual doula, intuitive strategist, and human design expert, and I'm also an entrepreneur. And today is another celebrity chart analysis. Now, the reason why I'm doing another celebrity chart analysis are for several reasons. After the last podcast, when it came to generators and my post about generators, a lot of generators reached out to me and they were saying, where's all this energy you speak of that we're supposed to have? And I wanted to do a celebrity chart analysis based on someone who I love, I've been following for a while, whose chart might reflect some of the questions that some generators who don't have as much energy are experiencing, and that's Marianne Williamson. And the reason why I chose her, well, number one, I love her. We're not going to get into any politics or anything like that. She is running for president, just like everybody else and their mama is running for president. I might run for president, who knows? But besides that, she's a phenomenal author. She's friends with Oprah, another generator. And, you know, I believe Oprah did a Super Soul Sunday with her one time and said that Marianne is like the best prayer that she knows. And I will have to agree with that. I have a majority of Marianne Williamson books, but one of my favorite books that she has, it's called Illuminata. And it's a book of prayers and thoughts and some other stuff. But the prayers in this book, baby, these prayers be on point. I have this book highlighted, tabbed, anything that you can think of to pray about. She has a prayer for, whether you pray to God, to the universe, to source, whatever. This book is just a game changer, just in general, just for prayer. And when you just need a word of encouragement, when you're feeling down or you just want to pray for yourself or somebody or a situation, she has, prayers all the way down to when you feel like you've been betrayed, prayers to attract love, all of that stuff. And it's called Illuminata. I'll put the link in the show notes and on the website. And the website, you'll also be able to find her chart. I'll put that there. But the reason why I picked her, because I study charts a lot. And she's one of those generators where I don't even know how she's running for office, because the white open spaces in her chart, she's going to either get burned out or just get extremely overwhelmed. So I posted about this on my Instagram about centers, and I'm going to be talking more about centers, because centers are very important in your human design chart. And Marianne Williamson is one of those, how I like to say, open generators, who either have their sacral center, of course, because they're a generator, they have their sacral center defined, and then they have another center defined, and they only have two defined centers. I call them open generators. She's one of them. She only has her sacral center defined and her root center, and everything else is open. And that is one of the reasons probably why some generators, even if you have 2 or 3 defined centers, you could be experiencing not as much energy as, let's say, a Beyonce who has a lot of defined centers, or Oprah who has a lot of defined centers, just because an open center, like I said on my Instagram, an open center is an open or inconsistent personality trait. And it is very susceptible for outside influences. So just think of your centers as antennas picking up on energy, on different influences, all of that stuff. That is what your centers are. So for Marianne Williamson, who has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 open centers and they're all, from her head to her ajna. Her throat is open, her G center, her will center, her emotional solar plex, and her spleen are open. That is a lot of energy for one person to have or experience energy around them. So let's get into Marianne's chart. Marianne Williamson is an author, a speaker. She is a student of the Course in Miracles. She's a teacher of the Course in Miracles. I'm sure you've heard of her. If you haven't, it's fine. Look her up. She probably has some really great information to give you about your soul, all of that. So when we talk about the centers, like I said, are 9 centers in your human design chart, and each center represents an energy that is affected when we engage in different areas of our life: love, friendship, self-worth, your career, business, your upbringing. It has a lot of susceptibility to be conditioned, especially if you have open centers. Your centers are either defined or undefined, and this is not going to be a center specific podcast, but I just wanted to just give a brief primer before I get into her chart. So they're either defined or undefined. Defined means colored, undefined means white. And like I said, defined is consistent energy, open is inconsistent energy. So when people have open centers in their chart, there's always questions that you come up with and you ponder when you have open centers. But what Marianne's chart is really interesting is because she has, like many people, a lot of good pieces to her puzzle, as I like to say. She has a lot of great gates that show up in her work. She has the intuition gate. She has the knowledge gate. So I'm sure she's an avid reader, studier. I like studier. It's probably not a real word, but whatever. Studious, whatever. She's imaginative. She's great with money. She receives support from other people. She's ambitious. She has a lot of those components in her chart. But the interesting thing is, because she has built this amazing career and she's mastered something, ding, ding, ding. She has mastered something. She's a phenomenal author, and she's moving on to try and master politics in her own way. But some of the things that you want to look at when you look at her chart is how open it is. Her being a sacral inner authority, because she's a generator, is very interesting because, as you know, and as I've probably taught you if you listen to this podcast, generators and manifesting generators, you're here to work, you're here to build, and you have a lot of energy. However, that energy is also based on the different other components in your chart. So being so open like she is, she might not have as much energy as a Beyonce, as a Oprah, just because of all of the open centers that she does have. So if you're listening to this in your chart, if you're listening to this and you're a generator and you're like, I don't have that much energy, it could be because you have a lot of open centers in your chart. Now, some of the open centers that she has in her chart, which make her the person she is, she has her head center, her ajna, like I said, her throat, her G center, the will, emotional solar plex, and the sacral, and the spleen, But what is interesting is that because she has all of these open things, because I don't normally see a lot of generators with open G centers as well as open will centers at the same time. Because Marianne she's a multimillionaire based off of her books and her speaking and the courses that she does, teaching, everything. She has a lot of extra outside influences. So what your centers do is, like I said, they're susceptible for you being influenced by your surroundings. So having an open head, which is the inspiration and pressure center, you might find yourself trying to answer everybody's questions. But it's good for her, for Marianne, but with her answering everybody's questions, she's given people things to think about through her work. With your ajna, having that open center, you are maybe trying to convince people that you're certain, convince everyone around you how certain you are. So that also reflects in her work as well, because she's convinced people of her spirituality and how certain she is with that. And then you have your throat center. I don't think she's necessarily tries to attract attention, maybe now with some of her political views, but a lot of people with open throat centers, when they are not living in their natural state, they try to attract attention. They sometimes get worried about how things are going to manifest, because in human design, the throat center is the manifestation center. The manifestation center is speaking power through your words. So when you have an open throat, sometimes it's a little bit hard for you to speak and to get your point across. And then she also has a open G center, and the open G center is the identity center, higher self. Marianne Williamson, she knows who she is, I'm sure at this point, but even in her talks and about herself in her bio, before there was a time when she did not know who she was, and it helped her discover herself through the Course in Miracles, and she built this huge body of work, and which is very interesting, to just find yourself through a particular work and then use that work to a jumping off point for your own work. And then she also has a undefined will center or heart center. That's the ego and will, and that's also associated with self-worth. And so she might struggle to think that she has something to prove. Is she smart enough, successful enough, sexy enough? So she might deal with that now with her own personal political race that she's going to have. And then she also has a undefined emotional solar plex, and that emotional solar plex is about that emotional wave, about emotional awareness. So when you have an undefined emotional solar plex, you sometimes don't like confrontation and the truth, but she has overcome that, and she has learned probably to deal with that. And then she has an undefined spleen, which is the spleen is a generating, it's like the immune system, intuitive awareness. And so when you have that undefined, you might hold on to things that are not good for you. Jobs, relationships, people, all of that stuff. But I say this to say, and this is like not necessarily a whole big chart analysis for her, but I say that to say the reason why I did this is because the centers are really important. That's where most of your deconditioning is going to happen. As you follow along with me and as I release more products and the things that I'm working on behind the scenes involves that, because your centers, it'll involve centers, gates, a lot of stuff on my take on human design since of, me and my study of it. But your centers really are where you need to decondition, because they're the most heavily influenced from your parents, from society, from the outside world, from your friends, especially when you have open centers. When you have defined centers, it's a lot easier for you to possibly have your own thoughts, your own way of thinking, to come into yourself more. So just remember that. So for my generators out there who don't necessarily feel like they have the energy that I speak of, or the same 24 hours as Beyonce and all that stuff, it's probably because of your centers, depending on where your centers are. Because you might have, there's 4 of the centers are motors, which are the heart center, the sacral center, the solar plex, and the root. Now, of course, you're going to have the sacral center as a generator, and a manifesting generator. But if you also have the other motors, or at least 1 or 2 of those motors open, then you might have some energy problems, such as Marianne Williamson. So like I said, I'm going to post her chart on my website at the, in the show notes in the book that I'm telling you about, Illuminata. You won't regret it. Now, I brought it for like 98 cents used. I brought a used copy. I think the hardcovers, they only come in used, but you can buy the softcover brand new if you're like a brand new book person. It's a really, really great book. But yeah, that's why I really wanted to talk about her chart today, is because of all the open centers and all of the feedback that I got from the Beyonce podcast about generators and energy and mastery and all of that. So you can look at Marianne's chart and see, wow, look how open it is. Look how much open stuff. And she was still able to accomplish these great things. But mastery is over time. Once again, generators, mastery is over time. But even if you are in the midst of your mastery, or possibly in the midst of a plateau, and you might be experiencing these heavy non-energy periods, it could be because you have a lot of open centers. So that's just my take on that. Just to answer like a big question, I will be doing a specific center podcast later on down the line to talk specifically about the centers and how to use them and your awareness of them. And then I'll tell you about something that I've been working on as well behind the scenes regarding the centers. And next, we have a Help My Aura question. Please write in hello@acbrown.com, put in the subject line, Help My Aura. And someone had wrote me. I love when I get these. So please write them and I'll talk about this. But I actually know this person. I'm not going to say her name, but I know her chart because I just pulled it. I know her chart. So I can help her a lot more with this. So if you do have a copy of your chart, send it. Or if you don't, you can still get your question answered. So I'm going to start off with her question. Hello, AC. I've been listening to your podcast and enjoying every bit of it. Thank you, girl. P.S. I never knew or heard of human design until your podcast /IG. So I'm a projector 6'2". And so here's her question. I want to be a better communicator. I have a hard time expressing myself and tend to shut down when confronted, or I try to defend myself. Even if I'm in the right, I just shut down like a child, which irritates me. It's like my voice has been robbed by the person and I feel powerless. How can I take full power with my communicative voice? Thank you, SE. I'm just going to use her initials. So because I know her chart, she actually is a projector unicorn, like I call projectors with defined throats. And so the reason why she's having this powerless feeling, number one, is probably because she's a projector. Even as a projector with a defined throat, because like I said, the throat is the manifestation center. When it is defined, its natural state is able to speak or to act. However, as a projector, you still have to follow your strategy and wait for the invitation. So when she's getting confronted and she shuts down or she tries to defend herself, confrontation, technically, in my opinion, is a catch-22 type of invitation. So what's happening here for her is that she's experiencing a lot of the unhealthy traps of having a defined throat center. And some of the unhealthy traps of having a defined throat center is speaking too readily, speaking inappropriately, talking too much, which equals you losing impact on what you are trying to say. So when you have a defined throat center, your style of speaking can be very fixed. It can be sometimes even be overwhelming to others. And so especially when you're not following your strategy, your voice is always going to feel overwhelming to other people, especially for you being a projector. Usually when you are probably, I don't want to say speaking out of turn, but when you're not being invited to a conversation. And that's what I mean by catch-22 when it comes to confrontation. Confrontations is not necessarily an invitation to conversation. confrontation is usually just someone telling you their thoughts and opinions about the situation without really wanting to hear you. So that's why you get into a state of trying to defend yourself and having a hard time expressing yourself, and then shutting down, and then feeling powerless and feeling like that person robbed your voice, because confrontation is not conversation. And everybody can write that down. Confrontation is not conversation. When someone is confronting you, they are 9 times out of 10 not looking to have a conversation with you. They are looking to project on you. They are looking to throw their opinions on you the best way that they can. So as a projector, of course you're going to feel like a child. Of course you're going to feel powerless. Of course you're going to feel like that person has robbed you of your voice, because especially since you have a defined throat center, you right away are going to be speaking before readily. You're going to be speaking just inappropriately. You're just going to be talking to defend yourself, and that loses its impact, especially in confrontation situations. So my advice to you is, how can you take power with your communicative voice? Is when someone is confronting you, is you then can take that, because you do have a defined voice and you're able, defined throat center, and you're able to speak and act. Ask that person when they're ready to have a real conversation with you about it, and let them know, if you need to think about it, let's come back to this in an hour. Let's come back to this in 20 minutes. So the playing field is even, because when someone is confronting anybody with a defined throat center, like I said, confrontation is not a conversation. So it's going to be a lot of you not being heard, especially as a projector. You're just not going to get heard, defined or undefined throat center. But for you with a defined throat center, you're not getting heard because they're confronting you, and you have so much of a fixed verbal style with your thoughts and your opinions and your voice that it's automatically going to be shut down because it's going to lose impact. So when someone is confronting you, so you don't lose that power within yourself, is you ask them, can we reconvene and have a conversation about this? And whether it's a day or an hour or two, come back to it so it's an even playing field. So they'll be able to hear you, you'll be able to hear them, and vice versa. I hope that helps. I think that should help, especially with my defined throat centers. If you're a projector, unicorn with a defined throat center, you need to talk to me because you have an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. I've been getting very busy with a lot of readings lately, and some of the projectors have defined throat centers, which is very interesting. So, just hang in there and just make sure that you're having a conversation and not being confronted and defending yourself. So I hope that helped. And that concludes today's show. That concludes today's show. I need maybe some sound effects. But if you are interested in getting a reading, please look at the show notes. The link is also on my website. You can go to work with me, and it's Who You Are in Human Design. I offer several levels of readings. One is just a recorded reading, and then the other two are on the phone with me. We go over your whole chart. We talk about things and we discuss stuff. And then the other level is the same thing. And I also offer you a week of Voxer support for people who are just finding out about human design, or who might need support after our reading with situations, with things that are on their mind, helping them work through issues, etc. And some people also have been reaching out asking me if I offer coaching. I do not necessarily coaching, but more of an intuitive strategy kind of call, where I call it it's 0 to 100 business by design. I have many years experience as an entrepreneur, and I've learned how to look at charts and help you use your human design aura to either start your business, accelerate your business, or just creates a blueprint for your business and for the overall goals. I'm an ideator. Ideas are my jam. I can come up with a whole plan for you in my sleep. And so that's not advertised on the website, but if you're interested, you can also email me with that. It's hello@acbrown.com. And definitely check out my Instagram. Follow me on AC Brown on Instagram. And if you have any questions or if you want me to read your question for Help My Aura, please reach out to me and just put Help My Aura in the subject line, and I will answer your question on a podcast. Next up, I'm going to be doing more aura specific stuff. And so a lot of people enjoyed the generator one, so I'm not going to tell you what's next, but it'll be one of the aura types. But if you have any questions, feel free to DM me, slide in my DMs, or email me. But until next time, have a great week filled with good vibes and great energy. Thank you for listening to another episode of Is My Aura on Straight. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at AC Brown, and also check out my website for products and services at www.acbrown.com. And until we meet again, make sure you have a great week filled with good vibes and good energy.